lesson 13B, we're going to look at metrics that measure the level of competition within a market. In this particular problem, we have a table of 11 companies, fictional companies, that make and sell autonomous flying electric vehicles and their market share. Aerial Volt Mobility has a market share in 2032 of 3.2%. Now, over the course of the year, that market share rises to 4.6%. Meanwhile, Skystream Autonomy, that company's market share was 3.4 in 2032 and is now 0, which means either the company went out of business or was purchased by another company. Same thing happened to Skyportion Electric. They were a small company that got bought out or went out of business because their market share goes from 1.1% down to 0%. Now, in my table, the company with the greatest market share is Helio Cruise Technologies. Its market share is 22.7. It loses its number one ranking to Stratolife Automotive, which is at 28.5 in the year 2033. I'm going to copy these values to Excel to make sure that the market shares all add up to 100 for each given year. So I'm going to do a sum here just to make sure that these market shares add up to 100. And they do for 2032 and for 2033. Type this as market share. I'm going to cut it and then I'm going to insert it right above the four-firm concentration ratio. There are two metrics we're going to use to evaluate the competitiveness of this market. One is the four-firm concentration ratio. CR means concentration ratio. And then the Herfindahl index. If you click on this link, it'll tell you how to calculate the four-firm concentration ratio. Right here, it says the four-firm concentration ratio is a sum of total sales or the top four firms divided by the industry total. We don't have sales, but we do have the market shares. So there's another way to calculate it. Sum the top four market shares. Now, I don't have them sorted by market share because I have two different years. So what I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to use large. I'm going to highlight the market shares from Aerial Volt down to Aether Otterfly. And I'm going to type a 1, a comma 1. That's the largest. And then I'm going to do that 3 more times. But I'll change this to second largest, third largest, and fourth largest. Add the largest, the second largest, the third largest, and the fourth largest. And I get 75.6. Now here's a cool thing. I can just drag this across to give me the four-firm concentration ratio for the year 2033. So the four-firm concentration ratio was 75.6 in the year 2032, and it's 91.4 in the year 2033. So the four-firm concentration ratio went up. Why did it go up? 2 firms dropped out, which allowed, large firms to get even larger. Cloud Ride Solutions got larger. Helio Cruise got larger. Stratolift got larger. And Aether Autofly got larger. Maybe 1 or 2 of these companies purchased Skystream and Skyportion. They added them as brand models to their product mix. Now we need to do the Herfindahl index. I'm going to click on this to find out how to calculate the Herfindahl index. So what you do is you take the share of the first company, you square it. You do that for the second company, the third company, yada, yada, the last company. N is the last company. There are N companies here. N could be 4, N could be 11, N could be 25. So one way to do that would be to just square each of these values. And then do that for the year 2033, and then just sum those up, right? So that's one way to do it. It's 2 steps, right? We square each one, and we sum those squared values. Square that, sum the squared values. And we get a Herfindahl index of 1,564.96, which increases to 2,194.06 in the year 2033. So both the four-firm concentration ratio and the Herfindahl index are rising, which indicates that the market's becoming less competitive. Now, there's a quicker way to calculate the Herfindahl index. And the way to do that is to use sum product. Highlight the market shares not once, B3 to B13, comma, then I'll do it again, B3 to B13. And then I'll press enter. And I get the same number that I got here. Well, why is that? What does sum product do? It takes B3, multiplies it by B3. So it squares B3. That's the product part. So the product part multiplies B3 times its corresponding value, B3. And it does that for B4, B5, yada, 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 all the way down to B13. So the last one, B13 times B13. Once it's multiplied each of these values by itself, then what does it do? It sums it. Then I can drag this over here and I can get the values for the Herfindahl index quicker. Then I can just delete these here, right? And your numbers are going to be different than mine, but you're going to use the same method. Now we're going to use the table above to answer the following questions. From 2032 to 2033, how many firms exited this market? Well, to determine that, you look for the zeros in market share in the year 2033. This company exited the market. This company exited the market. Now, they could have closed up shop or they could have been purchased by another company. We don't know. In my model, I've had two companies exit. From 2032 to 2033, Elevon Dynamics market share went from 4.5 to 0.4, so it decreased. I'm going to calculate the percent change in the decrease by doing what it is minus what it was, divided by what it was, times 100. So it dropped 91.11%. I don't need the negative sign because, again, the change is a decrease, and the negative implies decrease. The four firm concentration ratio did what? I'm going to copy this up here. I'm going to paste it next to the four firm concentration ratio and the Herfindahl index. Meanwhile, the four firm concentration ratio increased by 20.90%. And again, that's what it is minus what it was, that difference divided by what it was, increased by 20.9%. The Herfindahl index also increased, but it increased by 40.20%. Unrelated to what we've been talking about, suppose there are 5 firms, each having identical market share. What would be the four firm concentration ratio? What I'll do is I'll type 5 here, 4 here. So this is firm 1, firm 2, firm 3, firm 4, firm 5. And since they have identical market share, and there's 5 of them, their market share is, each has a market share of 20%. The market shares add up to 100. The four firm concentration ratio is the largest plus the second largest, plus the third largest, plus the fourth largest. Well, that's just 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20. So the four firm concentration ratio would be 80. The Herfindahl index would be 20 squared plus 20 squared plus 20 squared plus 20 squared plus 20 squared. So 20 squared is 400. 400 times 5 is 2,000. So we enter the four firm concentration ratio for this scenario as 80. A duopoly is 2 firms. And I'm going to start off with duopoly where each has 50% market share. However, I'm going to write this as 100 minus 50 there. The Herfindahl index is 50 times 50, which is 2,500, plus 50 times 50, which is 2,500. 2,500 plus 2,500 is 5,000. Now, if I lower this to 40, the Herfindahl index goes up to 5,200 because 60 times 60 is 3,600 and 40 times 40 is 2,400. Those two added up together is 5,200. If I keep lowering this to say 30, the Herfindahl index goes up. Now, why is that? Why is the Herfindahl index rising? Remember what the Herfindahl index measures. It's a measure for competition. Is the market becoming less and less competitive as the market share of this first firm drops? It's becoming less and less competitive until all of a sudden that first firm is out of the market. And now there's only one firm. And that one firm has 100% market share. And 100 times 100 is 10,000. This is the highest the Herfindahl index can be. We want to know how low it can get. So let's reverse that. So when we go from 0 to 10, the Herfindahl index drops to 8,200. When we go from 10 to 20, the Herfindahl index drops to 6,800. When we go to 30, that first firm is 70 for that second firm. The Herfindahl index drops to 5,800. When the first firm has 40% market share and the second firm has 60% market share, the Herfindahl index drops to 5,200. When both have the same market share, the Herfindahl index is 5,000. Now, if this goes to 60, the other one goes to 40. And so it's symmetric, right? You can see that it's symmetric. Largest the Herfindahl index can be is 10,000. The smallest it can be when the market share is 50 for both firms. In this situation, each firm would have a market share of 50%.